What's going on, y'all? Today we're going to be going over my one clip flak build. I'm truly convinced this is probably the highest damage output in the game besides maybe like the Guardian and the Fish Slap Grenade, because you can literally one clip about anything besides a raid boss, and even the raid bosses you're still going to turn them into dust. But make sure to stick around till the end of the video because I have a trick that you guys can use to get even more damage out of this build for those super high HP targets. Before we get into this build, I did also just want to say thank you guys for the support recently. 100 views is really nothing to brag about, but I'm more than happy to see my first videos doing so well, so thank you. Alright, getting into our build now. Per usual, I'm just going to throw the skill tree up on the screen for a second so you guys can go ahead and copy that. And I'm sure you can tell, but we're just grabbing every single damage and crit damage boost that we can get our hands on. So sadly for our little friend Meat Thief, he's just going to be playing medic today and helping us out whenever we get a little too cocky and go into fight for your life. And like I just said, this is pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to be going over a whole lot in the skill tree. It's just a giant damage boost, but a couple important things to note are these two skills here: Turn, Tail, and Run, and Hidden Machine. Turn Tail is just going to allow us to pop Fade Away, and at that point you can pretty much just stop touching your keyboard because we're going to stand still and deal an extra 25% damage and gain 12% fire rate. Then on top of that, we're going to add another 30% damage boost with Hidden Machine when enemies aren't targeting us, aka when you pop Fade Away. And really, what else could pair better with going invisible than these two skills? Alright, and then of course we're running Fade Away and then the Gunslinger Jabber for that extra critical damage boost. Gorilla's in the Mist for our first augment, and this build pretty much doesn't work without it, so this is pretty mandatory. And then our second augment is going to be Unblinking Eye again for just another critical damage boost. Now before we get into the weapon portion of this video, I am going to do this slightly different than my past videos. I'm just trying to keep it as concise and to the point as I can for you guys, so I'll be putting a link to Loot Lemon for every gun and piece of gear down in the description, so you guys can check those out and see how to farm whatever you need. But I will be going over how and when to use each weapon and piece of gear so you guys know what you're doing when you get your hands on the build. I've spent a lot of time testing out guns on this build, and here are by far the best options. Starting off with our SMGs, we have the choice between the Plasma Coil and the Terminal Crit. Now this really just comes down to personal preference, but I do want to mention the Terminal Crit is definitely 10 times easier to get and arguably almost just as good as the Plasma Coil. So if you don't feel like grinding Arms Race or duplicating diamond keys, you can just go be Moxie's Pay Pig for a few minutes and you should have yourself a pretty great gun. Both of these SMGs operate in the same way, except the Plasma Coil has a weird burst fire rate pattern, but both are going to be great options for bosses, but also are pretty solid for mobbing as well. Now this is important and it applies to all guns in the build. For Anointments you have two options. You can go with the classic consecutive hits, or the best and most consistent option is going to be the 150% damage boost while in Fade Away, and that's what I recommend you try getting on every gun in this build. Now moving over to the assault rifles and the overall best gun on flak, especially for bosses, the Monarch. I'm going to show you guys what kind of Monarch to specifically look for and the one I always use. So first up, you're going to want one with straight up physical damage, no elements, which might seem weird at first, but you really get no bonus to elemental damage on flak, so I find it better to keep that damage in your bullets where they can crit enemies. Next thing to look for is making sure your Monarch has a bipod, because that's what sets this gun apart from the others. The bipod will extremely prohibit your movement, but that doesn't really matter. Like I said, in Fade Away you're going to want to stand still for that damage boost. And what we gain from that is way more projectiles, so we just deal even more damage, which is what this whole build is all about. Now I do highly recommend carrying two ARs with this build because this next gun is possibly one of the best mobbing guns for flak. That gun is going to be the Rowan's Call, and what makes this gun so great for mobbing is the fact that it capitalizes off our critical hits, which is what this build is amazing at. Returning ammo into our magazine and also ricocheting additional projectiles to nearby enemies is just amazing. Lastly, I recommend you pick yourself up a shock element version of this gun to help with those shields when you're mobbing. Moving on over to our shotguns, we have three great options to choose from. The best is probably going to be the Hellwalker. This can be great for mobbing as long as your Revolter or Fade Away is active. It'll one or two shot majority of mobs, making for an easy cleanup. But don't doubt this gun on the bossing side. When you pop Fade Away, it can do some hefty damage as well. The next shotgun we have on the list is the Butcher. Again, specifically a role with just physical damage and no elements. That's going to be because the main con of this shotgun is it just feels a little underwhelming on the damage side compared to the Hellwalker. But on the bright side, you pretty much have unlimited ammo, a crazy fire rate, and you know, I'd give it a thumbs up for mobbing. Now the last shotgun we have is the Heartbreaker, and the reason I put this one at the bottom is because it's really only good for mobbing. I mean, with your Revolter and Fadeaway, it does allow you to just 1 to 3 shot most mobs. But like I said, it's really only good for mobbing. It doesn't carry too much on the bossing side, and we just have so many other guns, especially 2 other shotguns that can do both a little bit better than this. Now sadly, I only have one pistol that I'd actually recommend for you guys, and that's going to be the Light Show. The Light Show fits perfectly into this build with its multiple projectiles, high fire rate, and it's a great option for bossing and mobbing. However, this is another one I would recommend getting a physical damage version of with no element. And as you can see from mine, sacrificing that element allows you to get a very high damage roll, and this thing just shreds and is an awesome addition to this loadout. Now if for some reason you don't want to use or farm a Light Show, you could use the Tizzy. I just personally hate this gun because 1, it's a hassle, 2, it'll shred through your ammo instantly, and it's pretty annoying when it's just breaking every couple seconds. But I mean, try it out for yourself. If you like it, go ahead and throw it in the build. I just have a personal grudge with this gun. Now rounding out the weapon portion of our video with these snipers. I have 2 great options for you guys, but they're both probably going to eat your ammo up like a pack of fruit snacks. The first and slightly better option is going to be the Lyuda. Now sadly, this is the only weapon I haven't farmed yet for a good roll, but it is available in physical damage, so if I had to take a wild guess, that's probably going to be your best bet aside from either a shock or corrosive. And of course, this gun is going to be best off kept for bossing due to the way it consumes ammo. Alright, and while we're talking about being bad on ammo, we have the Sandhawk. I suggest either going for a corrosive or shock for this, but a cryo could work as well, just really whatever you want to put into your loadout. And yeah, not really too much to say about this gun besides, like I said, bad on ammo, but it does a lot of damage, so if you want to use this thing, keep it in for the bosses. Alright, now all we have left to go over is our gear, and we're going to start that off with the shield, and I'm sure you could have guessed it, we're going to be using a Revolter shield. Now you don't really need a good Revolter, like with crazy rolls on it. As long as it has an anointment, you're pretty much green here. And of course for the anointment, you're going to want the on action skill start, activate any effects that trigger on shield break or fill. And now having this shield with that anointment on the fadeaway build, you're going to be using fadeaway so often and getting it back so fast with this build that you'll pretty much always just have the Revolter effect on you, so you're just going to be dealing crazy damage even when you're out of your fadeaway. Next up is probably our least important gear in the entire build, the grenade mod. And I like to run the It's Piss grenade mod for this build just because enemies take that increased damage for 6 seconds, so it's pretty nice when you're fighting some actual high HP targets like raid bosses or Psycho Reaver. Anointment isn't going to make or break this, but if you can get the on grenade throw damage boost, that's normally pretty good. We're going to move over to the class mod now. I've tested pretty much all of Flak's mods, and by far the best one to run with this build is going to be the stack bot. You don't have to get too picky picking between the Teething, the Vulpine, and just the plain stack bot. Really all of them will work just fine. And really all you want to be looking for on the bottom rolls is just something to help further boost that weapon damage, or something like fire rate or magazine size is also pretty good to get. Our last and final piece of gear, along with that extra tip I mentioned at the beginning that'll be coming very shortly, but stay locked in and let me get through this, because for most of your gameplay and general use, you're going to want to run the Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge. Just that extra stack damage increase is really going to add up and make a huge difference. Now I don't really recommend farming this thing for bottom rolls, because to do so you would have to just complete the worst DLC in the game over and over and over, and I don't even want you to do that. So, on to the big secret. I know everybody wants to know so bad. I'm gonna tell you guys. So if you want to take this build to the next level, deal even more damage, or if you're going to fight any of the following: one of the Proving Grounds, one of the Circles of Slaughter, Omnivorous, or even Psycho Reaver, I would recommend probably doing this. So all you're going to need in addition to this build is a Toboggan artifact. I know at first this might seem a little controversial with what I said, standing still to get that extra damage boost, but we're not going to mess with that. I know this is a glitch, I know not everybody might not be for that, so that's why I made the original build with the pearls, so you don't have to use this. But if you like some fun stuff like I do, and you just want to take down some fucking raid bosses, here's how. So all you're gonna have to do while you're up here in the sanctuary, or really wherever, just not where you want to go fight. All you gotta do is slide to activate the amp damage bonus. Head over to your map and travel wherever you want to go. Now once you're here, as long as you don't slide or save or quit, that is the only two ways you can cancel out this glitch. But as you can see, I have the amp damage bonus on all of my shots now. So I'm sure I'll put the initial clip up side by side, but I just want to show you guys how much more damage this makes you do. Now, it might not look like the most insane difference in the world, but still being able to kill that boss just a little bit faster is pretty nice. And you will see this effect scaled a little bit better over a big HP target like one of the raid bosses, because you're going from that additional 90% damage to a constant 100% damage. So like I said, maybe not for everyone, but it is another way just to enhance this build, get even more damage out of it, and have a little bit more fun with it. So hopefully you guys tried this build out, and if you do, give me your feedback down in the comments along with any other builds or Borderlands 3 videos you want to see. And one last time, thank you guys again for the recent support. Let's keep it up. It only makes me want to try and make some better content for you guys. But if you found this video helpful and liked the build, go ahead and like this video and subscribe for more Borderlands 3 content. Love you all, and I'm out of here. Doses.